Adrienne and Sean, welcome to Token Theater Friends. I'm so happy to have you here. So, who do you play in Black Odyssey?
I play Alessandra Sabine in the Black Odyssey, as well as two other tertiary characters, Circe and Charybdis, who was a part of the Sirens.
And I play Ulysses Malcolm Lincoln. And I don't play any other characters. All the characters are.
Because he's the titular character, honey.
Yeah, the character. Yeah, a lot of the characters are conspiring to help him come to consciousness in a way.
Black Odyssey is, let's say, like an updated version of the Odyssey that we know. Like, how would you describe the play?
Well, I would say it feels more like a retelling. The play plays as a fever dream in a way. It happens while Ulysses is under the knife for a condition called hydrocephalus. He's being treated for it. And as he's being treated, he's hearing voices and seeing visions of his ancestors and of his family, things that are happening in real time and things that are happening in the past and present and future. And a lot of these interactions are part of a conspiracy in order to bring him back into consciousness so he can see his family.
And he could be healthy and present for them.
Right, yeah.
Marcus Gardley is a genius, and I don't think I have to tell you this, like you know it very well. So how is it to open a script by Marcus and just dive into it? Like, just can you brag about it? Like, I'm sure it's incredible.
All the time. I mean, I met Marcus very early on in the beginning of my career in New York. And he saw me in a play and he invited me to sort of join his circle of actors when he would write and have readings and workshops. So I have been on the Marcus Gardley train for over 10 years, and I have loved every single thing that he's done. And he and I always promised to work together. And so when this opportunity fell on my plate, I was like, come hell or high water, I'm gonna make this happen, because I haven't, and I've been blessed to work with a lot of writers thus far in my career, and he definitely is one of the standouts because his words are poignant, his storytelling is elaborate and emotional. I mean, all the feelings that you could feel, you're gonna go on this journey and on this range of emotions, because he creates such specific characters, and he allows you within the wording and in the language to just give it everything, every facility that you have within you to make it, to make this character come to life and to make the story come to life. So it makes perfect sense that it was this heroic, crazy, epic saga tale of Black Odyssey, that we call Black Odyssey, to finally be able to like say his words every night. It is an honor for me, for sure.
It's an honor for me as well. And to open the script, it can feel intimidating because there's so many words and you want to do it justice. And what I discovered with the script and how Marcus writes is it reads one way, and then you hear it and it's doing something sonically with the alliteration and the sounds and the words that sound alike but don't mean the same thing. And even into performances, I'm making discoveries. There's a scene where a character's picking my hair and they go, tell me a story. And it doesn't have to be a good story because I ain't picky. And I was like, my brain exploded because I'm like, they're picking my hair. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, wow, like it was like a moment. And I was like, there's so many other little things where you may not discover it until further into rehearsal or later. It lands in a weird way. It's beautiful, beautiful writing.
Mm-hmm. It's always revealing itself to you. The script, the play, the words, how you can play with the words and how you can emphasize a meaning or a point, you know, within it. And then sometimes you'll be saying a line every night for like 2-3 weeks. And then you'll live like Sean said, you'll have this moment where it'll hit you like, oh, that's what that line means so much more.
And sometimes it can happen when an audience member reacts to it, and then you hear it through their perspective, and you're like, oh shit. Or somebody or another actor looks at you a certain way, and you're like, oh, that's what that is. Because I thought it was this thing, but it's bizarre.
That's also so cool though, because like I'm pretty sure that in a parallel universe, Marcus is Secretary of Education, because at a time when, you know, like we are being told that classics and history should not be, you know, taught or visited, he's doing this incredible thing, which is like reworking the classics to be able to include Black history and merge them and see like this is why both are important and you can't like disregard one or the other. So you kind of already touched on what you discover about the play every night, but what have you discovered about, I guess, the way history is written, the way history is told by doing this play with him?
That it's cyclical, you know, the things that were being written about in the 60s, heck, during the time of the Odyssey. You know, I mean, no, not during the time, because it's a mythology, but I mean, these same stories and struggles that people go through is cyclical. It happens to us all. I mean, the fact that you could take something that was this you know, fantastical story and apply it to, you know, a modern day Black man and his family and what's going on today, but then also jump periods in time and in space and in history, and it still be relevant, you know. And what I also love is that, yes, you have the Greek mythology, you have the Black history and the Black culture. You also have, you know, spirituality, deep roots of spirituality and African ideas and folklore and it all like blends together and it makes sense. Like, it's interesting. Some of the feedback from the audience are like, sometimes I didn't know what was happening, but I was still there. And then it all made sense to me. And I went back and I was like, oh, that's why you know, it's interesting how it all kind of collides in this beautiful kaleidoscope and this tapestry of like Black culture, you know, and history and music. And, you know, it's all there.
Everything she said.
I'll take it. It's so refreshing and so rare, I would say, to hear actors talking about listening to what the audience is, how the audience is reacting when you're on stage. Like, I feel like usually, I don't know if maybe I haven't asked the right questions, but I'm always under the assumption that people just kind of learn how to block audience members. But
No.
Not an audience.
No. But
not
in general,
audience. Tell them, Sean.
but in general, our audience is very vocal. They are in the play.
Yeah, it's an interactive show.
Yes, and truthfully, I do think some moments live or die with whether or not the audience is there with us. And if they're not there, you can feel it. You can feel that there's something off. So when they're with you, they're with you. I always look at it like, and I've always thought this, no matter what play I was doing, it always feels like you rehearse a play, you do room runs, you do a tech rehearsal, but the play isn't complete until you get your last scene partner. And the last scene partner is that audience. And they're different every night.
Yep. I agree. I 1,000% agree. And the play, at the very beginning, you know, we say, let us begin at the beginning so we can end at the end. And we are literally inviting the audience into this world, into this experience, into this story, to come along with us. I mean, we say, you know, shout out, clap if you feel like clapping, stomp, dance, you know. And then I remember we were talking actually for Saturday's show, was probably one of our most vocal audiences.
Very vocal.
That we were like, okay, y'all, okay. I mean, at one point, you know, there are moments of the show where you feel like you're watching, you know, our version of like Good Times and the Jeffersons, like together with the family dynamic, right? And the audience chimes in and they'll be like, girl, don't do it.
No, don't do it.
Okay, no. And you just like, okay. Like, let me get the words out.
They're in it. They're in it.
So but it was built to be an interactive piece. And so throughout the show, we're talking to the audience. At one point, I mean, I don't do it anymore, but at one point I was sitting in the audience member's lap, you know, but then I was like, maybe for the COVID safety of it all, I shouldn't keep doing that, you know, but it's a very interactive play.
Yeah, there are even moments when there's a moment where I give a speech, or moments where I look at the audience and I address them directly. I usually pick a person and address them, pick a different person every night. Or even there's a moment where we do the sirens, where we do like a musical number, and I have eye contact because my character is looking for help in the moment. So I look at an audience member like, help me, please. Like, you know, because they're there. You can see them. You can't act like they're not there.
Do they always want to help, or have you had cases where someone's like gets like stage fright?
There was one person when I pointed to them and they like shuddered a little bit, like me, like, you know, because it's a deep moment. So when I pointed to them, I could tell that they stopped breathing. But I'm like, no, you came here to be a part of a show. You're not. This is not the show to come and be like, entertain me. You can't just sit in the audience and just. It's the type of show where you have to be a part of it. You're in there. You're in the room.
So it's almost like the audience is kind of like an extra like Greek chorus, right?
It should be.
Well, the audience is a character. Trust me, they're a character in the show, even when they're silent, you know, because that even speaks, you know, and a lot of times actors think when an audience is silent that they're not engaged or involved. But, you know, I take that as they're just listening deeper.
We were just talking about that yesterday.
Yeah. Because sometimes we do get, you know, or you get a really quiet audience and it's like, what do you do then? And right. So I tell myself, because it is such a, we do receive and we enjoy the laughter or the talk back or the, you know, the sniffles and the cries that we hear, or the, you know, the catching of a breath, like all of that is like, okay, they're there with us. And so sometimes that can feed you. And then when you don't hear it, you're like, wait, are they not there with us? Are they not, do they not think that was funny? And you can get inside your head, or you can say, oh no, they're just really paying attention.
Right. Or they're listening, they're quiet throughout the whole show. And then you hear someone blowing their nose, like during a sad scene. And you're like, oh, they're there.
They're there. They're still there.
So like as people that, you know, like as creative people and artists that obviously get something from this feedback, what replaced, probably there was no replacement for it, but what occupied, I guess, the space of an audience during the years that theater was, you know, on a break because of the pandemic? How did you get that, I don't know, those creative juices? Like, how did you feed that relationship without having a live audience in your lives?
I think that was what was hard for a lot of artists, is because you don't have that relationship to the people who are consuming the content that you're creating or the work that you're doing. You don't have a direct relationship with them. I think that's also the challenge of, like, you know, acting on camera. You know, you don't get to be in contact with the people who are watching you every week or watching you, you know, day to day. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, I think we all, you know, get into this business because of our love of storytelling and our love of entertaining and our love of creating this world and this portal for people to, you know, go through and escape, you know, whatever their reality is for just a moment in time. So it was hard to not have that. And even and I'll be honest with you, you know, I went back to shooting relatively early in the lockdown and the pandemic. And as excited as I was about like, oh my God, I get to go back to work and, do some things, it was a challenge because storytelling and how we tell stories changed and shifted. I mean, just how set protocol had to change. And even now today, in the audience, our audience members have to wear masks. And I always look forward to like looking out and seeing faces, especially with a show like this. Like I can only imagine.
Yes.
If we would have done the show before the pandemic, or like hopefully in like 5 years, less than 5 years down the road, when we're not required to wear masks in the theater and test all the time, and have these it's a breakout or whatever, that we can like go back to seeing faces, because especially with a show like this, because it is so interactive, and we do depend on like seeing and hearing from the other characters, the audience in our show.
Right.
Has your relationship with your craft changed in any way because of this, weird times that we just are coming? I don't know if we're coming out of it or not, but like this years that we've experienced recently.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's interesting because when I first started doing a lot of theater, I was doing like regional and, traveling to different theaters. And so the dynamic is different because you're, staying in this apartment or this housing situation with everybody else. And so you kind of already are just kind of clumped together. And I remember I did this show once. We opened at La Jolla, and then we came back and opened at Playwrights. And so we had this wonderful time in La Jolla, California, like getting to know each other and like, whatever. And then we come back to New York and it's like, all right, I'm bye. You just like leave and you go home. And then sometimes you go grab a drink with your castmates afterwards. But sometimes people are like, oh, I didn't see you out for 10 hours today. I need to be out. But I will say this cast is extraordinary. And we love each other. We fan booed up like day one. And it's been wonderful. Like even on the tough days, and I know Sean will agree with me, even on the tough days when I was like, man, I don't know about this, and I can do all this that they're asking of me, I literally went every day because of them. Because I love this cast.
There are even moments, I mean, we were like, we don't even have to do the play. We could just hang out.
We could just go to the theater. We could just go to the theater and hang out. There was one time I literally came, I was like, I don't even want to do this show tonight, but dang, I want to hang out with y'all.
Just hang out with y'all.
Yeah, and that's last night. It was great to kind of hang out with the cast and their friends and family after the show, because yeah, it's just a great group. It's just a great group of people.
And it's a blessing to be a part of something where everybody's genuinely wants to do their best in order to tell the story, and you can tell that it's about the story and to get along with people, to get along with the cast, and even the crew, the people backstage who are helping us get our wigs and clothes on. Like we get along, and that's a blessing to have that, because it doesn't always turn out that way. Sometimes it's the exact opposite.
Okay, so Adrienne, I am about to do some cross-referencing, I guess, to other episodes. So I will ask Sean a question that we've asked you in the past. So I'm not trying to bypass you or ignore you, but if you want to know what Adrienne said, go back and listen or watch our episode with Adrienne, which is like a fantastic episode, by the way. So Sean, the question for you is why theater? Why did you want to become an actor?
Whoa. Okay. Well, I was always an imaginative. I grew up as an only child, and I grew up in a housing project. And being an only child in a housing project, you sort of become self-reliant on your imagination. And so I had a really wild imagination. I fell in love with make-believe at an early age. I would make believe everything in my room. I'd be doing sailing ships and shit, doing crazy stuff in my room. And as I got older, I never grew out of it. And I found the closest thing I could do to living make-believe as an adult, which is this. And then eventually finding purpose within that, and then being like, oh, I can use this to affect other people. It's not just like a selfish pursuit. It's actually something that I can do to be of service. And so that's where it came from, just the love of make-believe and imagining something or escaping or finding something new within myself that I didn't know that I had. And I've tried other things, tried a lot of other things, and they didn't work. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay, now I want to know, what have you tried? And I don't think I ever asked you this, Adrienne. Like, have you tried something that's not what you do and do so well and love?
Yeah, I tried a lot of shit. I was like, at one point, okay, so like, at one point I wanted to be a forensics detective. So I went to the high school for law enforcement and public safety, studied forensics, and was like, I want to do this thing. Then we went to a real forensics lab, and it was nothing like it was on TV. It was nothing like CSI. It was like cold, fluorescent light, white walls. I was like, where's the blue light? Where's the suits? Where's the dimly lit labs? And it didn't look like that. So I was like, oh, I want to be on the show. I don't want to do this every day. I've tried, I thought I wanted to be a radio broadcaster, thought I wanted to be a newscaster. There were a bunch of things I tried. A model. None of that shit really clicked.
You could still model, Sean.
Hey, you think so? You think so?
Might have to trim that down a little bit up top. Yeah, and me quickly, I think every actor, goes through a journey of several jobs. I was in marketing and advertising before I even moved into the arts professionally, and went back to graduate school and got my degree and so forth. So I was an event planner, and I worked with major Fortune 500 companies and helped them achieve their vision for their marketing campaigns. And then when I was that struggling actor, I did everything from working in a cookie shop. I was a nanny for years. I worked at CFO magazine. They tried to pull me back in when they realized how good I was. They were like, "Oh, are you sure you don't want to get back into marketing?" And I was like, "No, I'm good." And surprisingly, funny enough, my old boss from CFO magazine came to the show a couple nights ago. And she was like, she pulled her mask out. She's like, "Hey, Adrienne." And I was like, "Oh my God, Molly."
That's fantastic.
You're like, I'm still not coming back, so I'll try to
recruit
me again.
It's funny, I think I had an influence on her because after she left the company, she started working at BAM and now works at City Center.
Wow.
You see, when you show up where you're supposed to show up, God will show out.
Yes, and sometimes when you follow the thing that you're supposed to be following, you even said this, Adrienne, when you follow the journey that you're supposed to be following, it leads others to where they want to go. It inspires others to do the same.
Mm-hmm. We get deeper now.
We're talking about the odd jobs that we were doing to survive. I was like a cater waiter. I was a tour guide at Radio City. I did a lot of shit. It's crazy. Like actors, we do a lot. Yeah, there are actors everywhere.
Question. I got a question. Can I ask a question, Jose? Can I?
Ask who? Jose?
To you. What was the job, or what was where you were able to transition full time into being a professional artist?
Like the acting job?
Yeah, like when you were like, oh, I don't need to like do side jobs anymore. I can I'm a professional actor. My income draws primarily from this.
I think it was voiceover stuff. And that's how I got my SAG card, through voiceover first. So yeah, it was like little narration gigs here and there, commercial here and there. And I was like, oh, okay, I can survive.
Got it.
Okay, that's kind of like that newscaster job in a way, right? Like using your voice.
Yeah, but then you can actually make believe because newscaster, I mean, like I know they make believe a little bit. They actually make believe a lot, but it's a different kind of make believe. You know, you can still act and play different characters, or, but also you don't. There's a way with narration where you're invested, but you're also not. There's an objectiveness to it that I really enjoy with narration.
The two of you followed, the academic path in order to become actors. And when you're in school, you are usually taught, the classics, not in this cool way that Marcus does the classics, but the classics as this like imposition almost. Like you have to learn the canon because it is the canon and we cannot question it. So what are some works that you wish were regarded as part of the canon that aren't maybe done enough, or maybe people just never seem to stage at all?
So well, my idea of the quote unquote canon is different for me, because the things that I consider the canon for me are the plays that I like. And then there's the plays that you learn about in school. But then if somebody was like, this is the canon of plays, as far as I'm concerned, every Black play that I've read or that I like is in the canon too. The canon is subjective, I think. There's some teachers that are like, this is nothing to canon. I know.
It's subjective, but I think it also points to the lack of opportunities for, BIPOC playwrights in general, Black, Indigenous, people of color, because of who the core students are in the schools, right? You can, I know we're moving toward the society of genderless casting and non-binary casting and so forth, I don't even know all the words, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Non-traditional casting, that's the word.
Right.
But I remember specifically when I was in graduate school, we were doing plays that fit the student body, yes. So we were doing a lot of plays from white playwrights. So I think that issue kind of needs to be looked at, needs to be looked at with a little bit more scrutiny, because then in that case, I think there are a lot of BIPOC artists that should have their work as being considered as canons in our literary work. Like I think Alice Childress, I think Pearl Clegg, I know we've done it. We've celebrated August Wilson. I know we've celebrated Lorraine Hansberry, as they should, but there's so many more.
Amiri Baraka.
Right, James Baldwin. There's so many people who I think work needs to be lifted up on a regular basis. I think there's a lot of playwrights who go unlooked because it's like if we're not celebrating the August Wilson and Lorraine Hansberry, then they don't deserve the light, but they just as much deserve the light.
There's so many other stories that need to be told, but then because those stories aren't being told in the education system, there are artists coming up that don't get the chance to say those words, or that don't know that they are represented in text.
Mm-hmm.
That there are characters that are like them, or characters that they could play. Mm-hmm. So many people. I remember being a young kid coming up looking for a monologue, and this is before I really was aware of August. As a kid trying to do monologues, just to do monologues at home. And I'm like, I had no idea until I became like a late teens. I was like, why didn't I know about this?
Mm-hmm. 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 And let's be clear, Marcus Gardley will definitely go down in that book of canon, of works that are playwrights whose work will be heavily cycled through the generations. I remember one time I was having a conversation with him, and he told me he had 15 plays commissioned at one time.
My God.
At theaters around the country. And I was like, 15? You wrote that many plays?
In addition to all these plays that you didn't get to know and learn about until you were done with school, what are some other things that you wish school included, because I'm actually right now, the reason why I'm in Spain is I'm going to grad school. And in so many ways, the academia seems to be so stuck in this very narrow-minded idea of how things should be done and how everything has to be like scientific process and all of this like very limiting and unimaginative ways of doing things. So what were some other things that you wish got taught in school?
The business of it all, and on camera work, because that's a different instrument. It's truth is truth, but there's a different instrument at play when it comes to your body and what things are doing. I sometimes wish that the schools that I had gone to had prepared me. I feel like my graduate school experience prepared me a little bit more, but like undergrad and you take classes in this, but nobody's teaching you. You gotta find a lot of the business shit. You gotta find out on your own, or you find a mentor to tell you.
I agree wholeheartedly, Sean. I think there's not enough explained about how the business works, how to navigate it, how to get an agent, how to if you want to be a writer, how to break into the business. I mean, a lot of people get into the business through referrals, or if they, get selected at some type of talent showcase or, whatnot. I mean, there's no clear-cut path, even in going to graduate school, but yeah, I think for sure to educate, because, and I'll tell you, this is the lesson that Snoop Dogg taught me. He said, there's a reason why they call it the entertainment industry or the entertainment business.
Right.
He was like, my job is the entertainment. That's what I was hired to do, and that's what I bring forth. But the business, that's what everybody else, your manager, your team, your agents, this and this and that, they facilitate the business. And you have to really remember that it's the entertainment business. And both of them, operate as one and the same, so to speak. But a lot of artists just think, oh, I just want to do art. I just want to, and I was like, it's great, do art all you want to, but how much of the business do you know?
And if
how
you
much
really
of the business can you navigate?
And if you really want to make a living, it's just the understanding that one hand washes the other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a masterclass right there.
But the on-camera thing, I remember being in undergrad and like we were fighting for even in graduate school, we were fighting for like on-camera classes. Because it was a different thing. We found that it's just a different instrument. Like the equivalent of like a set change on a stage, on camera, all you got to do is look to the left, and it's you telling a different story. It's a lot for the actor's instrument to realize, oh, this is a completely different thing. It's just not acting is acting, but there's so many different things at play, depending on what medium you're using.
I remember the first few on-camera auditions I went to, and I was so nervous. And we actually did do some on-camera classes in graduate school. But the first few, I was so nervous because it was like, oh, what they don't prepare you for is now you're in a room with a casting director, and they didn't see how many people today, and they got you third of 50 or you the 50th of 100, you know what I'm saying? So you go in there with all this like anxiety, and I want to do good. So my first few auditions, I was so nervous, Jose, like no lie. I straight up looked dead in the camera's eye the entire time. Like a deer. I was like, whatever the line was, I was like, I know they looked at that camera and was like, she's not gonna make it.
That's another thing they don't prepare you for. Like when you're on set and there's a camera that like this close to your face, and you're supposed to have an intimate moment with somebody, and there's this big black thing up against your face, and you're just like,
and your acting partner is trying to do their best, trying to be as close to that camera as possible. And you're like, girl, it's not gonna work. It's not working. Yeah. This shot is gonna get edited out because they're gonna see this is the bull.
Yeah, and then they tell you, oh, you can't look in your scene partner's eyes because it reads differently on camera. That's happened to me before, where it was like, you can't look in their eyes because it looks as though you're looking somewhere else. So cheat your eye line. And now I'm looking at a book on their bookshelf for the scene. It's like it's different. It's a different animal.
Do you have any practical, let's not call it advice, but rituals or suggestions of things that you do that might aid people who are listening, who are actors who don't know how to move between mediums like the two of you expertly do? Like, what are some tips that you have for people like that?
There is a calibration of this is going to sound real. I don't want to sound pretentious, when people say, oh, the instrument, but like there's like a calibration. You know how like if you work with sound levels, there's like an equalizer. There's like a calibration of that when it comes to theater and film. So like with film, it's like, oh, the equalizer for the visual, you can turn that up a little bit. But the equalizer for sound is maybe not so high because you're mic'd here, you got a mic here. But then when you're on stage, it's like maybe a little bit of both, but the intimate visuals may not read, but the bigger visuals read better because you're in the theater. So it's like calibrating that, like how much of my body, for a frame, it's like, you can do something, but then on stage, it's like my legs and everything is in the frame. So there's like a calibration of what works for what medium or what shot.
I think what my mother has always encouraged me to always remain open and be open to explore and have new experiences, and to say yes as often as you can, obviously when it's within reason and, it's not, detrimental, but to say yes. And so I started similarly to you, Sean, my voiceover career was my first entry into professional work. And that's how I got my SAG card, because I said yes. And and my agent at the time only represented me commercially. And so I still had to get a theatrical agent. And so I was still like beating the pavement around New York, trying to get onto a New York stage so somebody could give me a chance. And then that, is what opened the door to stage and then film and then television. But it's always just saying yes and always been like, why put myself in a box if nobody else is putting me in that box?
Yes.
If they asking me, can you do it? I'm like, yes.
Yes. And also like I got in trouble with that a couple of times, like saying something on your special skills, saying that you can do something that you really can't do.
Okay, well, don't be saying you fluent in Spanish, bro, if you ain't fluent in Spanish.
I know. But like say yes, and say yes to the things that scare you. Because I think there's something there. There's something to be said for something that feels intimidating or daunting or scary. Say yes to that. Move in that direction, because that means that you'll grow and you'll learn.
To me, that's fearlessness. Like a lot of people are like, what does it mean to be fearless? And I think it is to approach that thing that you fear, like to lean into that fear. That to me is fearlessness. A lot of people think it's, being powerful and like overcoming the fear, but it's like, no, it's actually being like, this scares the shit out of me. Let me try it. I mean, that's what the Black Odyssey was. The Black Odyssey, when I read the script, I was like, well, it's a lot of singing. And I'm knowing Marcus, Marcus is not like one of those sit down and just like talk kind of like writers. His characters are constantly engaging and moving and doing all these things. And so I was like, well, there's a lot of singing. And then I kept seeing my characters with a song and then a song and then a song and then another song. And I was like, is this a musical? This is a musical. This ain't just a play. And that scared me. And I said yes to it just because it scared me, just because I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah. I the same exact thing. Somebody in our cast said something that always cracked that I think about to this day when they said, Harriet, when she was like, every time I turn the page, it's yellow. Because, when an actor highlights their lines, they have yellow. And it's like, damn, I got more shit to say. I was like, first time I read it, I was like, damn, this brother's going through a lot. Can I do this? I'm gonna do it. And so, because I was like, it's scary, but it's exciting. And so, yeah, same as
Yeah,
Adrienne.
if it doesn't scare you, what's the point of doing it, right? This is Lola, by the way.
Oh, what's
I
her
don't
name?
know if you want to edit her in or out of it, but this is one of my dogs. This is Lola. She's been the whole time, she's been scratching my leg because she wants to get in my lap.
So like, we love dogs. Like, bring all the dogs. How many dogs do you have?
I have 3, but 2 of them are with me now. The other one is resting patiently on the floor.
They're all invited. They're all welcome.
This is the little. She's the selfish one.
She's a cutie. She's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very, very adorable. So after dealing with things that scared you, like, I'm glad that you ended up wanting to do the play, but after dealing with things that scare you and playing characters as intense as the characters that you play in Black Odyssey, how do you like unwind? Like, how do you? Oh my gosh, she's yawning. I'm sorry. Dogs just. I can't. Sorry. Okay. So how do you unwind? How do you release all the emotions that you have been dealing with on stage?
I try to meditate. I try to pray. It's funny because I usually like to sit in a room alone, but it's hard to do that when you go backstage because it's a lot happening. So finding a way to get into like a bathroom or something where you can just breathe in and breathe out. But I also there's like a mental thing that I try to do is as I'm taking off the garments, it's like I'm releasing the character and I'm not taking that character home. So I try to attach, I endow the garments and the objects in his pockets and those things with that character so that when they're not on me, I can release it. But also contrary to that, the opposite of that is that it's weird because when we're in rehearsals, I try not to have my wallet in my pocket or things in my, because then I'm reminded that I'm me. So I like to, it's endowing the garments and the things, the props with the ideas. And then so when you let go of them, you're you again. So.
And for me, it's honestly these guys, just remembering that my name is Adrienne. I got to get home and get my dogs walked.
You gotta do laundry.
Things like that. Honestly, like, it's so funny because most times nowadays when I'm doing like my meetings and stuff, I'm usually outside walking my dogs because that's a time and a space for me to kind of think and be in nature and be outside, and my energy responds well to nature and being just being outdoors. And so I'll take them on a walk. This is the only reason why I don't want to pick her up, because she can get a little demanding. I'll take them on nice long walks. I listen to music. Music is another big source of inspiration and just calmness for me. When I'm going through something, there's a song, there's something that'll help me out.
Would you like to invite our listeners or viewers to come see Black Odyssey?
Would we? Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Bring your ass to this play, please.
Get yourself in them seats before they fill up, because they filling up.
Yeah, they are filling up.
We have had amazing audiences.
Yeah.
Seats are like almost, if not all, full. Like, we've had,
right.
And just even for previews.
Like the first 2-3 previews packed.
It was packed. I was like, wait a minute. We just and our first preview was the second time we ran the show.
Yo.
Which is why I think we all read a bit like, what is going on? Like we literally only ran this show one time yesterday, and we having previews today. Wow,
It's wild.
I was scared, but
Full audience too.
But you know, we've had amazing audiences. They've been so generous.
Yeah,
they've been so generous. I mean, like our first preview was like the show ran 3 hours and nobody left.
And they were engaged the
whole time.
The whole time they were with us for 3 hours.
They were like, it was long, but it was good.
Right. Everybody was like, it was long, but it was good.